Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. We're still on Newshub Extra. On Thursday, the members of House of Representatives uncovered the sum of 1.218 trillion unilaterally withdrawn by the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation from the Petroleum Profit Tax and Joint Venture Royalties for payment of fuel subsidy in breach of relevant provisions of the 1999 Constitution as amended. And now we have the former member House of Representatives, Honorable Jeff Ojinika, here with us. He's going to be talking about the subsidy and the discovery of the money. You're welcome.
Glad to have you on the program.
Thank you.
Okay, let's keep our viewers, let's take them back. Recall that the federal government had been advised not to borrow 4 trillion naira to pay fuel subsidy, which would escalate Nigeria's already huge debt profile and further squeeze the country financially. This is even as the country lost up to 22.68 trillion in foreign exchange earnings as a result of the current crude swap regime in the last 18 months. A lot of people say subsidy to be or not to be, that's the bone of contention. Also recall that the National Assembly had in April approved a review of the 2022 budget, including the payment of 4 trillion naira subsidy for premium motor spirit, popularly known as petrol. And this amount of subsidy is the highest in the country's history and indicates an increase of 254.3% from 1.573 trillion in 2021. Do you believe in subsidy?
President Mohamed Buhari, as a presidential candidate of APC, during the time Jonathan was the president, described, that time there was a protest on the subsidy. He described the petroleum subsidy as a scam. And currently, so many Nigerians have seen it as a scam, as a conduit pipe to siphon the lean resources of the nation. The intents and purposes of the subsidy is very well intended, but the implementation is where the problem lies. Yeah. There are a whole lot of issues that have not been settled. One, what's the actual quantity of petrol that is being imported? You can't get the statistics.
At all.
What amount is being paid? You don't. Figures are coming up here and there, and so for us to have a subsidy of 4 trillion in a budget of about 15 trillion. It's almost like we're living for subsidy. And from all indications, a good number of Nigerians are living fat on others. And we can't continue this way. So the best bet is to, as a matter of urgency, stop the subsidy so that let everybody, in fact, they should subsidize everybody directly. Because if this money that is meant for subsidy is directly, channeled to Nigerians directly through their accounts or through they have the BVN of everybody, send the money so that people can now go and subsidize their own petroleum. It will be a lot better than this scam that 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 individuals that are involved in the cartel or the cabal will be in position to be making the nation dry. And more so, the most unfortunate thing about the whole thing that makes it very pathetic is that this money is being borrowed. Yeah. That you borrow the essence of borrowing is for you to invest and make money out of it, and then from there you can pay back. But if we are borrowing to subsidize petroleum product, then we can never come out of it. So it's important that let there be a total halt, because right now nobody can answer the question as to what quantity how many vehicles we have in the country. Nobody can tell you. What's the consumption rate per day? Nobody can. You have conflicting figures. And also the ironical part of the whole these discoveries by even the National Assembly, EFCC, and all the rest of them is the moment all these discoveries are made, maybe before you know it, there'll be nothing. You will not hear anything about it again, and maybe there'll be a lot of talks under the. So the best thing is to stop it. That's definitely, because the issue of putting up a strict regimen about it and all whatnot cannot really. So it looks like the cabal involved in it has overwhelmed the country.
Okay, don't you think that a total halt could, cause another ripple effect from what we are preventing initially?
No, but you know the problem. The people benefiting from this subsidy will never allow our refineries to work. How come it's so hard off in a country like this? How come our 4 refineries are not working? Is it not a mystery that we have 4 refineries and they cannot work, and we have to rely on exporting crude to other countries, and then in turn import refined products, and they will now come back and will not subsidize it? It's a joke. It's a joke taken too far. So I think the best bet is to anything that the government will do. This 4 trillion that we use in subsidizing, if we use it in setting up, how much does it cost to set up a new refinery?
And even the existing one, can't we turn around?
No, assuming, granted those ones are moribund, they can be rehabilitated. How much does it take to establish a new refinery?
Okay.
It bothers me too if we have individuals like the likes of Dangote, who is coming up with refineries, and the federal government cannot even come up with one. We have Port Harcourt, Kaduna, and the rest of them also. It gives me a great sense
even the refinery of Dangote, from what statistics and figures they were showing out, and the CBN intervention in that, it also seems that it's also being over-bloated. The figures are being over-bloated. So what you go to the Google, how much does it cost to do a refinery? It doesn't cost all this 4 trillion, 5 trillion. By now, we should have had more than 6, 7, or 10 refineries in the country, refining petroleum products, and people can, that means people don't serve as petrol attendants. You enter the petrol station and pick your fuel and pay and go. So I don't just understand. It's something radical in that sector needs to be done. It's not going to be through a normal process. Radical in the sense that we just have to hold that process. Even if it will grant everything, let it do that. Because how can we, if after this year now 4 trillion, maybe by next year now it might get up to 10 trillion, if God forbid.
Regime after regime, this has always been the issue. Okay, so we even had the Petroleum Industry Bill, Buraha, and now the NNPC is rebranded. So with the rebranding of the NNPC and the whole charade, do you see any significant change happening?
Oh my God. The rebranding, you still pass the office, it's still the same people, the same, that nothing has changed. And we just that maybe some...
At least we are limited now.
Exactly. I was thinking, yes.
Some group of Nigerians maybe are intending to convert our common patrimony into personal thing, because they now registered it with some people as the directors. And so that's the only thing that has changed. Nothing has changed. I mean, nothing in every form. So
you think the Petroleum Industry Bill would not even, bring any significant change to this?
The problem with our listeners is in terms of implementation. We might have good laws, good intentions, and but implementation, I still would find it difficult until they start the activities and we're able to see petroleum products, we're able to see a lot of transparency in the petroleum sector. The major problem we have in the country is that there's a lot of opacity in that sector. They try to talk about issue of the set up NETI, transparency initiative and all those things, but it has never really translated to a lot of if you check how much does it require to get crude in other climes and how much does it take to get that in our own clime, the same kind of products, maybe in our neighboring countries you might get it for about $10–11. In our own it will go up as much as 21. So at the end of the day, even from the cost of production, we have already built in a lot of corruption in our process. In fact, the only saving grace for the country is a situation where we have, the moment we have a leader, a selfless leader, somebody that will come and start from the basics. The basics is that you do a comparison between other countries. All the countries that are exploring products in Nigeria are also doing that in other countries. You do a comparative study. How much does it require to get a barrel of crude in Nigeria? What does it cost in other countries? By the time you do comparison, you will discover that from the foundation of even production of crude, that there's a whole lot of corruption built up in the process. By the time you go to issue of exporting crude, if you have to, because we don't have any reason in the world to export crude. We should build up our refining capacity in the sense that the moment we start refining, all the byproducts that we use in our petrochemical industries, that we still in pharmaceuticals, that we still import into the country, we can locally produce. The money we make from all those products might even be more than the money we are making from the PMS itself.
Now, while the discovery of borrowing by the NNPC was made known, thereby increasing our debt profile, it was also discovered that the federal government is currently paying 283 naira as subsidy on every liter of premium motor spirit imported into the country by the NNPC Limited. So if this report is ready, please, let's roll it. Okay, so we have 283 naira being paid.
And what the quantity that is
and we do not even know how much the volume of consumption to date. So we keep borrowing, our debt profile keep increasing. What is the way forward? Where do you foresee Nigeria?
Well, World Bank has predicted that by next year, and most times their predictions come true, that except Nigerians take their destiny in their hands, that by next year our total production or the total revenue that we have will not be enough to pay for not just for the loan but interest accruing from the loan. So meaning that in no distant time some of the countries we have obligations with may be seizing our national infrastructures. We may have a situation where our national airports, our seaports, our valued infrastructure may be under the control of some foreign companies and foreign governments, and that's exactly where we're heading to. You are settled in some African countries. China is to control of Zimbabwe, or I think it's Zimbabwe. They took over their national infrastructure, their airports. They are the ones in charge. They determine who comes in and who goes out. And there was this video sometime that was trending, you know, where they had to teach that our students have to start learning how to speak Chinese. That very soon, it will be compulsory for you to speak Chinese in Nigeria, because virtually some of the national infrastructure that are being done with a Chinese loan. In the rail sector, the airports, they're all through Chinese loan. So very soon, maybe they will take over, and we'll start. So you better start learning how to speak Chinese.
Ching chong, ching chong. Okay, while we plan or we prepare to learn, that report is ready, please. Let's get it.
Up for the investigative hearing, it was discovered that the NNPC Limited borrowed money from profit tax to fund subsidy from 2018 to 2021.
JV royalty, DPR, yes, they are paying DPR JV royalty and then JV PPT. So they are borrowing these monies to fund subsidy. So the question now is that not illegal?
I have not seen any thing in the record that has been done, and except for sometimes when Mr. President gives special approval to provide for CBN to provide some funding.
Earlier, the Federal Inland Revenue Service had distanced itself from the allegation, saying its sole responsibility is tax enforcement.
We need to know the Constitution provides that money should be remitted into the account before the expenditure.
The service statutory function remains that of assessment, collection, accounting, and enforcement of payment of taxes.
The lawmakers picked holes in the minister's presentation on projected 18.397 billion fuel subsidy payment per day. In his intervention, Honorable Isiaka Ibrahim queried the rationale behind NNPC's deduction from source the sum of 1.66 trillion against the sum of 1.5 trillion naira paid to oil marketers in 2021, leaving an excess of 500 billion naira.
No public holidays. In fact, even during the COVID-19, when there was lockdown and limited movement, the consumption rate remained the same. So I wonder how the honorable minister, through the ministry, can accept this kind of figure.
To the landing cost, projected landing cost of 448 naira per litre for 2023.
The CBN paying from the 13 billion, they paid 484 billion to independent marketers.
Speaking earlier, the Minister of Finance observed that the medium-term expenditure framework has been submitted to the National Assembly leadership before embarking on the 2-month annual recess.
On the issue of the computation of 6.7 trillion for 2023, we have to do it now because we have to submit the MTAP for 2023 to 2025 now for consideration of Parliament.
Subsidy payment, the lawmakers said the figure was outrageous, and the government should abolish the subsidy regime and channel funds to other productive sectors. From
well, that was it. That was the report you have watched, done yours truly by my colleague here.
Even if we have to buy the fuel for 1 billion per litre, let's do it.
Yeah, but the issue now is this is always how we go back and forth all the time. Like I said, from one regime to the other. The other developed countries that we're referring to are already going green. They're already looking for alternative energy sources that could generate, income for them. Do you think that would also help, push the priority we have for petroleum in Nigeria?
Definitely. We've been running into a very great difficulty in the sense that in other clients, people are now talking of electric cars, People are going into solar-powered cars, and very soon our petroleum products may not really be in very high demand. So, but we have a Ministry of Science and Technology that is not functioning. So how can you even? We have our research places that could, go into such sectors, but nothing seems to. So it's something is fundamentally wrong with the country, and that's fundamental issue is the issue of leadership. You understand? Our budgeting system is the type that needs a total overhaul, a radical overhaul, radical departure from what it used to be. A time will come that we will expect to have a leadership that will have what it takes, the intellectual capacity, the energy and the political will to do things rightly, so that you will not be, it will not be a matter of maybe you're offending the godfathers that a whole lot of entrenched interest in the country. A lot of people have taken, a lot of people have been in that petroleum sector pulling it down. They don't want it to come up. A lot of people have also in various sectors, is it in the health sector, you get a good number of people that have been in that sector, they don't want that sector, they're holding it down. In the education sector, in all agri sector, you throw in trillions and trillions of naira into the agri sector and you get nothing.
To clear grass.
You get nothing at the end of it. You will also throw money into the environment sector, you will not get result. You throw a lot into the highways, a lot of people are there holding the sector down. So we need a total and a radical change, and it will require a leadership at the highest level. I'm going to mean at the highest level of the president, who will be in position to turn the country around from the current trend that is going. Our budgetary system, has to be totally and radically changed. The way we do our budget, the way we do our funding, the way we do our things have to really greatly change. This way that every year you check the previous year's budget, and this year it will not much changes. They will change some figures and put things. You just keep recycling things, and every quarter they say they have done this quarter release, whether it is useful or not, second quarter, third quarter. No, we cannot develop that way. We cannot develop that way. We need a total change from the system that we're operating. And when a lot of people talk about restructuring on the country, they will think it is about changing power from one hand to the other. No. We need total radical departure. I've tried to monitor our budget. I got involved in the budgetary process from 2003. Then we were budgeting in billions and hundreds of billions. Our budget never reached a trillion then. And day by day, the budget, it keeps increasing, but the output, the deliverables, what number of highways have we gotten since after then? What number of dams have we improved on our dams? Have we generated more electricity? Have we done? So at the end of the day, our destiny is not just on the deliverables. It's just targeted at exhausting the money. But if we set a target and say, for this year, we must get 10,000 megawatts of electricity. And you see, what does it take to get 10,000 megawatts of electricity? If that's the only thing that will accomplish in that sector. You do, and there's a comparative in terms of cost, what it will cost in other clients and what it will cost in our client. And you specifically map it out. Not that the whole money you split it, you are doing rural electrification, you are doing solar power, you are doing this, you are doing that. At the end of the day, you end up achieving nothing, and you are still where you are. There's still no life, no power to power our plant and all whatnot. So what I think is that our budgetary process must change, and once we change it, every other thing will change from there. Because budget is the main economic document for the country. Is what determines how we make progress and how we don't make progress. So by the time you look at our budget, you discover that 80% of what is in the budget is not necessary. Is not necessary. We as a people should have our eye on the ball. This is what our national priority is. This is what we want to achieve, for this year or for the next year. And we specifically go for those things that we target to achieve. And there's no too much synergy between the states and the federal government. There are so many things that the federal government got involved in that ordinarily they should not. You see, in most of the states today, most of the federal highways are being rehabilitated or being done by the states. What's the implication? Most of the dams, what does it take to do the dam? It's even better for the state government officials who are close to those projects to stay, monitor, supervise them. The government, the central government should only be interested in issues like defense, security, maybe external communications, foreign affairs, and all the rest of them. The rest thing that the federal government are doing are things that ordinarily the states can do better, because they have what it takes to monitor and see to the implementation of those projects. So, but the federal government today is doing borehole, is doing health center, is doing minor things that they shouldn't really get themselves involved in.
You're a former member of the House of Representatives. It boils down to constituency project. So are you saying that we should abolish that?
The constituency project more or less was conceived. The idea about it came into our budgetary process in 2004. I was part of that process then. And how it was being done then is slightly different from today, the way it is being done today. In fact, the constituency project, entered into the budgetary process in the year, I think it was 2004, 2005. There was this agreement that 20 billion should be for rural projects to see how they could have touched the lives of the people in the village, because that's where majority of Nigerians reside. Yes. So of the total budget that year, they agreed that 20 billion should be set aside for those rural help projects. In fact, I was involved in going to the ministry for the breakdown. So what we did was that 20 billion was split into three. We have 10 billion was mapped out for rural water projects, and it was domiciled under the Ministry of Water Resources. There was 7.5 billion for rural electrification, was domiciled under Ministry of Power, and there was 2.5 billion for rural health projects, and it was domiciled under Ministry of Health, under the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency. Then what the National Assembly did then, that we came back to the National Assembly, we said, of these three projects, if you divide the 3 billion by the 20 billion by the number of constituencies that we have in the country, So members were asked to nominate. You choose whether you want a health project, and if you do, in which location you want it. Then each health project was costing, if you want a full-scale primary health care center, fully developed, and it was costing about 33 million to do any of those centers. So if you choose primary health care center, you know you are getting a project of 33 million. If you also pick a rural water project, maybe locations where you have, and they were domiciled through the river basins and all. Nobody got involved in either the execution or implementation. The most important thing is that those funds were domiciled in the ministries. You just do nomination for in fact, the person who did a borehole in my town, up till now, I don't know the person, I never met the person, but that's not what the system is now. No. And you now go, you see things that are very, very irrelevant. Like I saw, somebody said putting like 100 million for settlement of disputes between Ugezes and Jezes, or the youth and a lot of irrelevancies, and somebody can look at those things and sign such a budget, and you call it consultancy project. That was not the intention. We conceived that idea. In fact, the chairman then was Gabriel Sosan. He, kind of mandated me to go to the Ministry of Finance to help do, work with them on that breakdown. And we had to break it down into 10 billion for rural water projects, 7.5 for rural education, and 2.5 for rural, because it was meant to see how we could get to the rural, rural districts where majority of Nigerians live. So it wasn't meant at empowering economically or in any form the honorable members of the House. So the constituency project has been misdirected from what original intention was. So should it stay, or we should abolish? For it to stay, it has to go back to the original intention, as I said so. It shouldn't be anyhow project. They should, if we say we want to send 50 billion naira, we want to spend 50 billion naira to send water to the rural populace. We mark it 150 billion for rural water projects, and we domicile it within the river basin authorities or within the Ministry of Health, as the case may be. River basins are virtually in every zone. You can domicile it there, and their duty is to implement, to use it to provide water to those rural communities. And it will be the only thing that a House member or a senator will do is to, maybe for purposes of to liaise with these people, to know the greatest area of demand where this water is needed, because they are the ones representing the people. So they should be in position to nominate where those projects will be. But then anything beyond that, going into implementation, going into recommendation of contractors, going into is against the spirit and letters of or the intent of the constituency project. It was just aimed at seeing how the local people, their problems would be surveyed. But if you do analysis today as to the projects that qualify, so there are no projects that should qualify. There should be projects that you come up with a template. Outside this project, maybe water, light, this, that, nothing else can come in as consultancy project. So if you want to go and settle dispute between Ezes and Ugezes, you can use your private money to do that, but not to use the national resources to do that. If you go there, it's heartbreaking. If you go and read in those zonal intervention projects or the constituency project, and you read the kind of things that people enter there as projects that they want to use the money of this country to do, you weep for the nation. It's just a sheer waste of money. So they should go back to original intention. I can tell you this because I was directly involved those three major breakdowns of breaking it down, the 20 billion, well, in 2005, it was 20 billion that was utilized. And the 20 billion was divided into three sectors of health, electricity, and water. And these are the three things we consider that is very, very important to the life of the people in the rural communities. And not the issue of settling disputes or no disputes.
All right, that takes me to host communities. Host communities where this oil is being derived from. They suffer. And now the PIB is looking into at least giving them about 3%. PIA now. Yeah. Looking into how to give them about 3% or thereabouts. Do you think that there will be succor for these host communities?
You know, what they have been clamoring for is to have a resource control. And then the resource control is that they have to be really involved even in knowing what this 2.5% comes up to. This 2.5% as we are talking now, they are not involved in knowing what constitutes the 100% and what constitutes the 2.5%. Is whatever thing that they get, that they take. But in terms of I don't think there's any environment that has been so degraded like our own environment in oil exploration. If you go to other countries where some of these companies are exploring and exploiting oil, they are not as abused as our own climate. If you really see the level of poverty, the level, these people, what these people are subjected to, and more so with the level of greed that is in our system now. Somebody will go and bust a pipe, and it doesn't bother him whether that will kill all the fish, the aquatic life, or whether people will have water to drink, so far as he draws crude out of the whole process. So the level of, with all this bunkering now, the whole place is finished. There's nothing left for host communities again. The environment, the life, the everything. So even the 2.5% now, is it really, sometimes you wonder, what are they really going to use it, is it for them to go to school, or is it for their health, or is it for so many? They should really do, I'm sure by the time if they do needs assessment to know what those people actually need in terms of health, in terms of getting quality water, in terms of getting even electricity and whatnot. I'm sure they will know that that 2.5 is just a peanut.
Well, you're still watching Newshub Extra. We'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll bring you more with our guests in the studio. Stay with us. Well, it's been an intense and interesting discussion here with our guest, a former member of the House of Representatives, Jeff Ojinika. He's also a member of the Labour Party. Thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Let's talk about 2023. 2023 is here. Yeah, we have a scenario where we have political parties in dispute, particularly the the opposition party, the PDP, and we have the rift between Atiku and Wike. The bone of contention is, I should be declared the vice presidential candidate of the party. For you, what do you foresee?
Well, 2023 is a year that we never would have experienced a year like that. 2023 portends either to be or not to be for the country. Rather than being challenged by the myriads of problems, people have been told that by 2023 we may not generate enough revenue to service our debts. our schools have been closed in the past, getting to 7 months now. It has never happened in the history of our country.
Yeah.
Our national grid has been collapsing and collapsing, and one day we'll wake up and we'll be in total darkness. Virtually every sector of our existence as a people is fast. Today you can't travel on our roads. Our roads are now the unsafest places to travel. In fact, a travel from Owerri to Enugu that used to be 1 hour 30 minutes in the past will now take you, the safest route will be for you to fly from Owerri to Abuja, and then from Abuja you enter a flight from Abuja to Enugu. It's safer for you to travel that way than going from Owerri to Enugu, because between Okigwe and Enugu, the bandits might take you and it might cost you about 100 million, or you might end up, if you are alive. So the situation that we find ourselves right now is not the type that people will be quarreling who becomes this, who becomes chief of staff, who becomes this, who becomes that. Rather than who is the person that can bring us out from the wood that we'll find ourselves. Yeah. I'm sure in those days there's somebody that might be suffering from sickness in a particular location. They will send out people, please go and look for where do we get somebody that can come and cure this person. Yeah. Because our situation is something that you cannot if you ever tell you that a time will come when we'll be in this situation, nobody. Yeah. And I ask myself, is it not the Nigerian? Like me, I'm from Imo State. I'm from Osu. If I'm traveling home now, I can only stop in Owerri. The 3 local governments of Osu, Oru East, Olo, you can't go. Yeah. And you can't. I used to also remember when I had a very close friend when we were in the house. Sometimes we would leave Abuja on Thursdays or Fridays about 7 o'clock. Before 10, we were in Castina. We will have dinner in Castina. But nobody can think about making that kind of trip again. So this is the situation that we find ourselves.
So where did we get it wrong?
Exactly.
You can. It's pure failure of leadership, and nothing more. Nothing has changed. It's the same people, the same land, the same. Nothing has changed in the country other than that leadership. Other than leadership, and the only thing that can also change it is leadership, and nothing more. So it's a duty for Nigerians. In fact, this 2023 is a duty for Nigerians. You want better health, you want the schools to come back, you want our economy to grow, we want things to turn around. Our destiny is in our hands. If you see the way it is now, this issue I raised about issue of that we need to have a departure, a complete departure from this process. Which of the people running for the election at the highest level, or the political party running for election at the highest level, can do this? Definitely, it will not be any of the 2 parties that have ruled this country that have been part of the process. If you are talking of the cabal in the oil sector, where are they located? You can only locate them in those two parties. What are the people holding us down in the health sector? You will only locate them in those places. the people holding the country down virtually whether it's in the agric, pour in trillions of naira in the agric sector, you cannot get any result. Pour in a lot of money in the, where would you locate them? So definitely the country will not entrust their destiny, and that the people that will change this situation the way it is will not be the people benefiting from it. It's as simple as that, because they want the status quo to remain. This, if you are talking of payment of 4 trillion, it's people that that 4 trillion will be entering into people's account. So you mean to tell me that those people getting the 4 trillion or their relations or the party that they fund will want the thing to change? They will not.
Maybe they've changed now because change.
So what will happen is what has happened in so many countries, and I want good enough our youths have already started. The same thing, if you go to Zambia now, they are picking up. People continue that way until their youths came out and say, no, to hell with this, because our future is our future that is being ruined. They come out in numbers, registered, voted, stayed on the streets until they enthroned the leadership. And that's exactly what we'll expect that will happen in Nigeria. I expect that in the next, by September, when the campaigns will start, I expect the youths of this country to come out in large numbers. I expect the working force of this country, the workers, the downtrodden, the 100 million Nigerians that are living in poverty. We expect all of them to come out. Because there is no other thing that can change their situation other than enthroning a very good leadership. Everything about the country, as I said, is still the same. We are still drilling oil. We are still, getting money from all the solid minerals. But what you see is, I have never seen a wicked country like ours. A situation where people will go and discover gold in people's land. Rather than allow the people to be part of they will go and get bandits and start running the people out of their town so that they can mine their gold. Probably
that will take us to restructuring. So if we restructure, individual states will take responsibility of whatever they produce. So aren't you in support of that?
There's no other way to go. The federal government is too bulky. It's too bulky. Restructuring is the way to go. Especially, you see, our resources more is even in the solid minerals, but that sector has not been given any. Go to Idu. You see where in containers, where these Chinese people are carrying all these our huge
pangolin scales and a lot of them. And
rocks. They are carrying it back. And they will bring it back to us. And we buy them as Palladiana and very expensive ties.
Okay, you were talking
about... So, you see, today, all these big rocks that we see that we are down the whole of these are billions, there are trillions of naira. Trillions of naira. They are not being tapped. So, and we really need 2023, the Nigerian youth, the Nigerian poor masses have to take their destiny in their hands. They have to come out. Over the years, they have used the issue of religion, ethnicity. Religion is very good. It's good for people to be religious. But you see that any religious person that is insincere, that steals from public funds, it's not religion. It's hypocrisy. So we will expect our people to come out this time, scrutinize the presidential candidates, the people that will come out, and see which of them can take us out of the woods. It's not even taking us to the point of, you know, when we had independence. A lot of people dreamt of where, you know, Nigeria should have been by now. Nigeria should have been one of the countries that can challenge the world, just like Russia is challenging the world. We should have been in that position. But right now, we are down there. So somebody should even bring us out first before we can now, you know, start moving to where
we did the Moses.
Yes. So talking about taking destinies into our hands, Nigerians, let me not even generalize, a lot of us seem to be, you know, forgetful. So when those time comes and when they start giving rappers, branded rappers, cup of rice and everything, we saw what played out in some states, vote buying. How do you see that hampering the 2023 election?
If there's any serious challenge that will confront the 2023, is the issue of vote buying. And but it requires a lot of enlightenment. It requires a lot of education. This education will not just be from the news media alone. We will enlist on your support.
Yeah.
But it will also be taken to the churches, to the mosque, to educational institutions, to any place that we can arouse the patriotic. We need citizens to be patriotic. Anything that we can do to arouse their patriotism. You know, there are times, in times of war, you call out, you see the way Ukrainians came out to resist Russians. Everybody expected that it wouldn't take up to 2 weeks.
Yeah.
They will overrun Ukraine. But on the contrary, the Ukrainians were united, their president, you know, and the people came out and they were able to resist these people. So we need to invoke the spirit of patriotism of Nigerians. Nigerians are patriotic people. We need to, whatever thing that will make us, how we will get about it, to invoke on their patriotism. To see that a time like this calls for nothing other than patriotism. Because if nothing happens, you can imagine, see presidential guards. Presidential guards. Who are you to have the guts at their front to get close to presidential guards? You know, see. So the problem is enormous. So we really need to come out. So please, if you tell our people, so what will it benefit you to take that 100,000? We have seen some people already, they have started doing ATMs and all the rest of them for people, and then each and every one of them, they will build in 100,000 into it and all the rest of them.
Yeah.
But the moment they know that it is their money that these people have stolen, and by the time they come in, they will try to recoup. And the problem will continue. The youth, no hope of getting job.
People are hungry.
As a student, who are giving, you go to school, you register, they give you a meal ticket. Meal ticket of 50 kobo. That 50 kobo, you eat chicken, you eat everything, and it's subsidized. For every food you eat, you pay 50%, the government pays 50% for you. And this is not as if, it's not as if it is 100 years ago. It's just about 20, 30 years ago. And today, students, everybody is not living off, is living off campus. We had free hostels in those days. So, and this thing happened here, and it can still happen again. we can still return to those systems, because what does it take to do them? The money that can be used to do those things are the funds that one person, you can imagine they will catch one person and they are talking of 180 billion, they are talking of this one, the billions of naira, and schools are closed. So I don't know the kind of money, I don't know the kind of this thing. If it requires, I don't know how we do this education, but I think the campaigns, from even the things you can see going around, like yesterday, the city of Owerri was shut down by the obedient boys. People, you know, few days before then, some people were forced out to come to the street, and before you know it, when they finished, issue of the money they were promised to pay them and all whatnot were not paid. And but you see what happened with the obedient group yesterday. People came out in large numbers. They were happy. People brought out their drinks and were serving people.
Well, in as much as we would not want to seem as if we were canvassing for a particular party, we would like to talk about INEC. What is your judgment on the coordination of INEC's, you know, the elections so far that they've done in some states? What would be your judgment?
Well, for me, I can tell you that INEC is work in progress. It requires eternal vigilance. There's still a whole lot of people who want to cut corners in INEC. INEC has a lot of the staff strength is quite very high. So you can have one or two corrupt officers doing funny things in some places. It is not INEC that is doing it, but it is just that you still have corrupt officials in INEC, just as you have corrupt officials in some sectors of I can tell you, even from some preliminary reports we have gotten, some of the INEC officials try to manipulate this last civic registration that took place. In the days to come, we're expecting that those lists will be out, and that people can go to interrogate them by raising objections. And the thing that we are putting the chairman of the commission on notice is that there were some fraudulent practices that took place. And by the time people come up with petitions on those issues, let it not be the business as usual, where they have to suppress those things. So we are calling for, on the part of Nigerians, we are calling for eternal vigilance, because there are still corrupt officials within INEC. And you cannot completely eliminate them, but it is through eternal vigilance.
Yeah. Okay.
So
the 2023 election for INEC will be collated manually. Do you see this as a step in the right direction?
Well, the INEC, we are not yet where we ought to be. The place that we ought to be is as it is in other climes, for us to do electronic voting. Use technology, you go, you press, the ballot paper will come out, you look the one, you press it, it records, and off you go. Within 2, 3, 4 minutes, you are off and you go. That should be the ideal system. And but we're not yet there. We still have to go and do manual voting. And this manual voting is still subject to a whole lot of manipulation. In fact, immediately the bill was signed, we had a by-election in Imo State, in Ngopala.
Yeah.
That process was flawed. What they waited, they waited for the end of the election, when they had finished voting or accreditation has closed. They used thugs, went and arrested the INEC officials, took them to a hotel very close to the Imo airport, locked them up, and then now forced them to now bring fresh ballot papers that were not used. They removed everything that was inside, and they now did the fresh thumbprinting to balance the number of accreditation. Having done that, they now force them to now count those ones and then now enter it into the result sheet and now upload. So what do you do in such a, if you go to the server, the results uploaded tallied with what is in the CVR machine. But how do you circumvent such? The ballot papers, the old ballot papers that were used in the actual voting were removed, and then a fresh voting done. So we still have to, there's still a lot to do in terms of the electoral security. They were able to do that anyway because maybe it was an election that was done in Ngopala, one state constituency. But if I don't know the number of talks they may have to get, when you have to do a national election like that. But having said that, that process is still prone for rigging. So not until we get to a situation where we do full electronic voting, we cannot say we are yet there. But this one, what we expect Nigerians to do is that people will come out, they will need to be there and vote. After voting, they need to wait and see their votes counted. After counting, they will be there to see that it is properly entered. And then when they cross-check, that result will now be uploaded. It is then and only then that they can relax. Because the Electoral Act now says it is uploaded result that is more authentic than the one that they carry manually. If they go and they cross-check and the one that was electronically generated is different from the other one, they will rely more on the electronically generated one. So that is just a safeguard. So the issue of the changes that used to take place in collation centers have now been completely eliminated. But the using violence to intrude rigging at the point of the boot has still not been completely controlled and eliminated.
We have a bill to that effect coming up on Tuesday, the Electoral Offences Commission. So by the time that bill goes through public hearing, we'll go for third reading. So Nigerians will get to know and be aware of the consequences of issues that has to do with probably violence, thuggery, and the rest of it all during election. What would be your call on Nigerians as we wait or as we march ahead of 2023? What would be your call on stakeholders, political parties? Nigeria as a whole. We witnessed that of Kenya, and a lot of people are saying we can actually, toe that line. What is your call as we prepare for 2023
My call
election?
is for the political parties to stand up and live up to their responsibilities. The political parties are the ones standing this election. And at the end of the election, they should not abandon their people so elected.
Critical.
You, right away from the time they win the election, they should start drumming to them their political programs, the manifesto of the party, what the party hopes to achieve. It's the party that constitutes the government, not the individual that wins the election. So the party should grow as a very big institution that should be in position to call the president to order. It's only the party that can call the president to order, or the parliament, as the case may be. You can imagine ANC resisted in Becky. When he wanted to do a second term, they said, no, you cannot.
Yeah.
The Zuma, came and tried it. They resisted him. They were able to stop him. So these are where parties are strong. And you can see also a situation where people grow party.
Yeah.
You can see how Malema, he was only a youth leader of African National Congress. They went, established their own party. Today in the parliament, they are distinct. They wear red berets.
Yeah.
They wear their red berets. They wear their this thing. You see them, and their policy, their programs, everybody acts according to their party guidelines. We will expect in the next process that the political parties, you know, if is any of the parties, they should be able to start dressing in a unique way that reflects the situation in the country. So, and for the people that will go into office, I don't think it will be business as usual again. You can't be there to do what you want. You have to relate with the people. And one thing I charge Nigerians, especially the electorate, there's a saying that the rat does not eat the maize of somebody who is awake. Nigerians, that we are having this, that we had electoral bill, electoral act signed into bill, was not a tea party. The same thing that played out in 2019 played out in 2021-22. The president refused to sign. They started playing in 2019. They played it 4 times. This time again, they started the same game until Nigerians woke up. People, civil societies, everybody, they got pressure to bear, and it was. Even at a time, the National Assembly wanted to play some games. They started calling NCC to come up with a report that so many areas were not covered. Nigerians, everybody resisted.
You used to be a member of the National Assembly.
I was part of that. I was part of the struggle. I was in this studio.
Yeah.
I, on 2 occasions, to get pressure to bear on them to do the right thing. You see, one of the things you don't, once you do the right thing, you don't know whether who will benefit from it. You may benefit. If you may be in the ruling party today, tomorrow you will be in opposition.
Yeah.
So, but it is good to do the right thing. So, not until we got pressure to bear on them. I can rightly say it that the president signed that electoral act under duress. Nigerians, no, people were on the street. People were demonstrating. President got to bear before they could sign it. And what is the result? Was the kind of positive result we had shown. Without that electronic transmission, that people were awake and seeing the result coming, they would have changed. Things would have changed at the point of collation, but it wasn't possible for anybody to do that. So it's a product of struggle. So what that means is that after electing people, you don't go back to sit back and watch. You'll be there following the progress of the people you elected. I urge Nigerians that in the next dispensation, let there be a lot of recalls. We must set a mechanism where recalls will be very, 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 very effective, and it will work. If a legislator or anybody is there and is not doing his work, they should recall the person back. And finally, the kind of thing that ANC used to do in South Africa, they have a specific period in the year, and usually the Congress is usually during the recess period. The recess is not for them to go and start traveling abroad or going for. During that period, the party at every level, the party at the local government level will take the elected representative at the local government back to their constituency. It's the party that organizes it. You go and confront the people. You go and listen to them. You go and interact with them. By the time they will finish, you will know whether you are going to do another term or you are not going to do. And the party will know whether if they feature you, whether you will win or you will not win. But the system we're running today is, you see people saying they're doing empowerment, they're doing this, they're doing that. They will call you to their place, their hotel, they will bring all those things. That is not accountability. That is not accountability. The people have their problems, the things that are confronting them that they want solved while they elected you. So you need to interact with them. So, and it's the party that arranges that program. It's not the honorable member that will arrange a program.
Now, whether we like it or not, finally, the CSOs, they have a major role to play. Their role cannot be overemphasized. What would be your call for CSOs as we march ahead of the 2023 election?
All right, and to add to that, part of the bill being considered is the 15-year jail term for vote buying, together with what she said. So, what?
Anything that can be done to stop vote buying is acceptable by me. It degrades humanity. Anybody that takes bribe, because it's like bribery. Anybody that takes bribe is not human, because it takes away your brain. It makes you less human. So we will still have to keep appealing and appealing and appealing, both for the people, debasing our people by giving them money to buy them. They are debasing our people. But for the civil societies, I just said, the civil societies have a very great job in terms of raising the awareness, the distance of the citizens. If not for the civil societies, the Electoral Act will not be signed. They were the people that mounted the greatest, it wasn't even the political parties. The parties were not the ones that mounted that pressure. The reason is that one of them may benefit, the other one may think he will benefit, and then so they are doing hide and seek. It wasn't the political parties. It was the civil societies. So, and for you to have a very viral democracy, and for us to train a very good leadership, the consciousness of the citizens must rise above the current standard. And the only people that can help to arouse the consciousness and the awareness of the citizens is the civil societies. People can be poor, but they don't know they are poor. Until you make them to know that they are poor. So, because they can be complacent. So, a lot needs to be done. And they need to let the citizens know. Before, they will tell you, there's no need to go and vote. We have already voted. We already know who will win. It's better we now go and tell the citizens, this is the power of who will become the president, the governor, these people that use siren, that it is you that will recruit them to make them to go and use the siren, that you are the most important person. And their vote is one and their own is one. That's the quality of all the votes. By the time they realize that the power is in their thumb, the power to better their life, the power to do everything lies in their thumb, they will then come to terms with reality. And
your message for PVC collection?
Once the PVCs are out, like some are out, people should please, as a matter of fact, go to their various localities to collect their PVCs. And then when you collect it, please safeguard it. We hear that jealously. That is your power. That is your power. That is your siren. That is your guide it jealously. Because you can't vote without your PVC. So Nigerians, is a clarion call for all Nigerians. Everybody. I don't think that people should vote based on ethnicity this time, or party sentiments. Being a member of the people should go and vote for the right leaders, because once you have a right leader and things are good, it will be good for all. And when it's bad for all. These bandits, they don't know who is who. All the people they captured in the train, they don't know who is who. They even captured a pregnant woman, sick people. They don't know who is who. So, and they don't look at faces. So what they are after is your pocket. So please, let us unite. Let us do the right time this time. And I expect that with the kind of leadership that we will enthrone in 2023, that the dreams of our founding fathers, the dreams of having a very glorious nation, a nation so blessed in the African continent, the giant of Africa will rise again.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
You're optimistic?
Yes, I believe so much in Nigeria. I'm proudly Nigerian.
Yeah, proudly Nigeria.
All right. Okay. So thank you so much for coming on the show. That was former House of Representatives, Honorable Jeff Ojinika, and it's
a member of the Labour Party.
And a member of the Labour Party.
No, I'm very obedient.
Yeah, no, you're a member of the Labour Party.
I'm an obedient Labour Party man.
You have to pay for that campaign.
Exactly.
You have to pay.
I'm an obedient
Well, that's
Labour
how
Party
much we
man.
can take on today's edition of the program News Hub Extra. It's been an interesting one and a very intense debate and discussion with our guests in the studio. So let's do it same time, same station next week for another interesting edition of the program. Remember, your permanent voter card, also known as PVC, should be guided so jealously. Do not sell your vote, do not sell your conscience, and ensure you vote wisely come 2023. Thank you. Bye for now.